And welcome back to the Part-Time Otaku Podcast. My name is Grant.
My name is Dave.
25 weeks have passed. We are now at the end of My Hero Academia Season 5. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, this is an anime-only podcast. We have no insights into the manga or anything future down the road. So just pretty much whatever we talk about here is just our insights into the episode watch. So, Dave, we are at the end. How are you feeling?
We made it.
We made it.
This is it. This is how men are made.
I don't know what I came out with on the other end of this, but I feel like I've come out with something.
We're coming out the other end of the tunnel.
Well, but you know what? There were some peaks and valleys.
There were
but
ups and downs.
And this episode just couldn't help itself. It just peaked and valleyed
Yeah.
the entirety of the season. It's so fitting.
That's a good point. I was going to say this episode is a great mini encapsulation of what the entire season has been, which is to say, hit and miss.
Hit and miss for sure. So, I guess before we get into the synopsis, we'd like to give a shout out to Reddit user mdesign247 for the Dobby thumbnail. Again, dope.
One of our favorite of the whole season, and I don't know if we've had many or any Dobby thumbnails throughout season 5, and I was kind of hoping that we would get a good one, and
vaguely remember one. I could be misremembering. Like I said, you and I see a lot of fan art in a day, just from our own browsing. But yeah, again, thank you again to mdesign247 for that.
We're ending strong.
So to the synopsis, both sides prepare for the confrontation between the heroes and the Paranormal Liberation Front as Class 1A finishes their first year of high school. But did they?
But did they, though? Man.
Okay, so, as finales go, not the strongest.
Not super
strong.
strong.
But also kind of... I think we knew we were going to go out this way because obviously season 6 was announced before this episode even aired, and it's very much set up that way. And this kind of just, I'm glad they didn't cliffhanger us.
Yeah, that might have been worse. Like we actually just finished covering Tokyo Revengers on the post show, and no spoilers, but these are two very different shows with very different season finales, and that's just like something topical of mind.
Sure.
Or Attack on Titan we covered at the beginning of the year, and that was a big cliffhanger. So I think if you have to choose, sometimes it's better to have like a natural ending to the arc, but you also know what's coming next. But it's not like on a heartbeat moment, So I guess in a way that's nice that like it felt like there was some closure to the end of this chapter of season 5, and I think everybody's just hoping that season 6 is a little bit stronger.
And it's I'm learning to just not listen to what the internet says, because I feel like for the past few years I've been reading, oh, this is the arc that everyone hates, or no, this is the arc that everyone loves. Like you guys are in for a treat. And since this episode has come out, everything I've read is, just wait, guys, like they must have been saving the budget for the next arc, because that's like the real deal. It's like they've been saying this for this entire season. I felt they said it the whole second half of season 4. It's just I don't know where to stand with My Hero right now. It's a very weird place in the fandom, for me at least.
No, I agree. It's at a very precarious moment. I think it's tricky because you don't want to like state the obvious, but sometimes you need to, right? And I think that you should go into a show with your eyes open, and just based off of some of like the very loose facts, right? And the loose facts are, this show is going to its 6th season, where its main characters are only just now not even exiting their first of several years that they're supposed to be at this school. And as Grant said at the top of the show, like we're not manga readers, so we don't even know how many volumes there are out. But I'm pretty sure we're not even halfway through what's already published of the manga. So there's a lot more to come, and it's just like, if every season is going to have peaks and valleys like this, where like there's like business up front, or you save it for later, or whatever, that's completely fine. But I think we're also like signing up for a show that's going to be on for like a dozen seasons before we get some meaningful closure to some of the really, really big arcs, which are kind of what suck everybody in to begin with, right? Like, you think about, like, the origins of My Hero Academia. It's Midoriya on his quest to be the number one hero, because that's how the show is introduced to you, his relationship with All Might, and then their confrontation with, good and evil vis-a-vis, One for All for One, and the League of Villains and all that. And that hasn't really moved much in 5 seasons. We're kind of where we were. I'm not shitting all over it. I'm just saying, like, I think, like, we kind of got to be aware of, like, maybe just the pace this whole thing is going to move at. Does that make sense, or is that too harsh?
No, absolutely. And, there's really not much more for me to add on to that, because, we've been saying this all season. We'll get into the plot of the episode there, but there's been so many things this season. Like, I never felt, season 3 and even season 4, I never felt like at any point the show was being used as a springboard for other media marketing. This season kind of just felt like a marketing campaign.
Well, a setup for the
movie, and then also now even a setup for like an immediate follow-up season. This isn't like, like, the difference is, like, Attack on Titan. That's what we've talked about with listeners of the show, and between you and I, like, season 4, we knew it was going to be split up, or we didn't know, but, like, at least we know we're getting a continuous story of where we left off, and we're getting that now too. But it just seems so strange they're marketing this as like a season 6. Like, why didn't we just call it what it is? Like, let's just call it like a two-pronged season kind of thing. That's how they should have said that. And then now it just feels like, oh, we're going to start fresh again. And no, we're going to be jumping right into a new thing, or like into the same stuff again. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, where everyone's memory is at going from this time to, next year, hypothetically, when it comes out. It's going to be a very, it's like you said, precarious was a good word, just between the fan base and all that. I've just never felt this way with My Hero. It's very strange. Yeah,
it's also last thing before we jump into the plot breakdown, but it's been an incredibly strong year for anime. If you guys haven't been listening to the post show, it's a whole other show that we release a couple days after this one, and we talk about everything else we're watching. And this year has been incredibly stacked for anime. So, like, you can't really afford to, like, kind of rest kind of on your laurels and put out, like, filler content when, like, there's just so much more captivating stuff out there being injected into the mainstream.
100%.
Okay. So this episode opens right where we left off, but with Hawks, and he's present at this, like, Liberation League commingling networking event for the Paranormal Liberation Front. And it's more or less just Hawks, having more internal monologue, which I feel like that's pretty much where he's been the last several times we've seen him. It's him looking around being like, shit, this looks serious. I better figure this stuff out and make sure people, heroes, are aware of what happens. But there is a bit of development, and that's basically a quick flashback of him showing Genist in a body bag to Dobby. So what do you think is up with that? Do you think that's a misdirect, or a very obvious misdirect?
I think this is, it is hard to say, because when they showed him in the body bag, there was the initial, like, shock and horror of, like, oh my god, like, did he crumble his body into a bag? But then, I immediately thought of, oh, well, this has to be a misdirect. This has to be, like, his backup or something like that. Like, this is something between him and them. But then they cut to Hawks' face and his reaction. Yeah. And, it's just like, oh, like, he feels some, like, serious regret here. It just kind of looked that way. Yeah. That could be a red herring by them, which would be a little lame, but...
I just had a theory. It seems very unlikely. And it's, what if... Which guy was it? Was it Skeptic, or one of the guys on the paranormal, on the Liberation Front side, was able to make puppets? Remember they made puppets of Twice?
That'd be Mr. Skeptic.
It seems so unlikely that Mr. Skeptic is aligned with Hawks, but what if it's like a puppet or just like a dummy of Genist's body? I guess that's probably not likely, but, like, do we really think Genist is dead after they took the time to specifically confirm him as being alive?
And then they also set up like Bakugo made the statement of like I'm gonna say my hero name to a specific person, like alluding to genus. So there's definitely still some like hot irons in the fire, relating to him. Like that'd be weird for them to tee those up and then kind of just like leave them. Yeah, I'm sure it's not unheard of that happening, but and then also too, kind of like to jump on your theory of the moment is. There was that weird moment between Redestro and Mr. Skeptic about, I think it was, but like you made a mistake or, you've made a mistake only one other time. Maybe that could tee up potentially some Mr. Skeptic, abandoning them or whatnot. But
good callback. Yeah, I forgot.
So
about that
it's interesting. Like I said, I know we sounded harsh a few minutes ago about like the future of My Hero, but they do these things where they just tee up so much stuff. You're like which way is the ball coming?
I was gonna say, there's so many balls in the air, and they haven't. Who knows if like by the end of the show, or the story, if everything is like wrapped in a neat little bow. But it would be hard to imagine that you close every single thread that they have open right now because there's just so much going on.
Yeah.
Then we go back to Shigaraki and the Doctor. Incredibly weird scene. I mean, I'm curious about what you think. They basically just recap the fight and Shigaraki's fight with Redestro, and how Shigaraki has kind of like made some really big gains with his quirk, but his arm is like kind of destroyed, right? So the idea is like he says his body's a little bit too fragile and he's going to need to be a little bit more toughened up if he's going to appropriately destroy everything like All Might has created. So he's like set on his path, right? And theoretically, the Doctor's going to help him, right? That's what like a lot of this work has been for, is so that the Doctor can hypothetically provide him with some kind of further power boost or something that is unclear. The Doctor starts talking about this whole like, oh, this is what All for One was really into, and it's about quirk research into the quirk singularity and simultaneous use of quirks. Do you remember like a week ago, like last episode or the one before that, we were talking about like sometimes they just feel the need to like give someone a monologue and there's not a lot of anything in it.
Sure.
I don't know what it was. It might have been my mood, but I did watch this episode twice. I was just like, what are we trying to get at here? Because that felt like an incredibly long scene of the Doctor talking about nothing but something.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It could be translation too. I don't know.
It could be that too. Because is this also the scene where? Because I only had the one chance to watch this episode, but I can't remember if it's later in the episode because there's a moment between Present Mike and Aizawa. But it might be between the Doctor and Shigaraki. They're making references to like the current state of things, like kind of essentially their army. And they make and it's, I think it's all around when Shigaraki's talking about like he's too fragile, but they make references like there's the power that you're gonna get, there's the the Liberation Army, there's like your lieutenants, and then they make reference to like Nomus, again this is did you not find it weird they said Nomus and they pinned it right on Dobby's face?
Oh yeah, I did notice that.
I think that is the same scene, right?
I think
so. I'm wondering if that was just a pilot for setting up like other stuff around it. Like it seems to be their usage of these monologues is just to kind of like let me talk, and then I'll do some visual storytelling, kind of in the background a little bit. So I think maybe that's kind of what they're going for here.
Do you think Dobby was created? Do you think he's a Nomu?
Well, they teed it up early in this. Like I've been stuck on this since it happened. Is when they first meet up with the Doctor.
And he says, "I've met some of you before."
Essentially, and then like like the way like Dobby kind of like just flat out talks to the Doctor of like, no, I'm not doing this or I'm doing that. So it's like I wonder if there's some rapport there.
History. Of some kind.
So there's that. So I'm just wondering if that scene of like just like long-winded of like nothingness. I think there is some stuff there.
Yeah.
It was, like I said, I think there's visual storytelling in that instance.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good take. He does say to Tomura, "You're going to be in pain hellish pain for 4 months. Then everything will be in the palm of your hand, even one for all."
I don't know what that means at all.
Meaning, I think you're going to get such a power boost. You're coming out of this hyperbolic time chamber after I've electrocuted you for 4 months.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay. Back to the present and back to the heroes after a significant amount of time away.
It was nice to see them.
Yes. So it's basically, I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I don't think it's necessary because it seems like a very clear scene that is just specifically designed to tell you that Class A has made a lot of progress. Yeah. We go back to the present, and they're just crushing drills, right? Everyone from Naval Laser.
The best part of that is Naval Laser.
Naval Laser and Aoyama, her bending the light.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite team up.
Yeah.
Sugar Rush, Ojiro, Duple Arms, Mineta, Kaminari, the whole class. Everybody has a little moment of them crushing drills and showing that they're teaming up and they've grown. So that's great. And then it ends on Midoriya doing the same thing, using full cowling. We haven't seen that like all season, it feels like. Mm-hmm. And the Black Whip. And he uses it like, he later says I can really only use it for a second, but he does use it pretty adeptly. Like he uses it to control, I think he grabs several cars or objects from midair using that quirk, and it works out pretty well. Mm-hmm. And then All Might has this like quick little moment of like,
I'm a proud
dad, but also like we touch on this later, but like it felt like to me like he was also like, damn, like I don't have much more to offer you. Did you feel that at all?
I think there's been like they've been teeing up a little bit of not hopelessness. That's not the right word, but just they definitely hit the point where he knows like he just can't be what he was.
Yeah. That's going to come with an identity crisis, especially considered how they introduce the character to you, right?
He was, and that's the thing too. He wasn't just the number one hero; he was the hero. Mm-hmm. He was like generational. He like all-encompassing power. Like, and that that's the nice thing too. Like we have gotten to know this character, and like we don't see like, he didn't have to like burn and like burn people. No pun intended. We didn't have to burn people like Endeavor did. Like there wasn't like a ruthless path to do what he needed to do. So he's just, it probably, it kind of just came natural to him. So it's weird to not have that in his life anymore. But, and like I said, they've hit that out throughout the season. They definitely hit it again this episode, but, which, that comes later. But yeah, no, definitely just seeing them all proud. And, Bakugo too. He definitely has become. It's kind of nice to see ever since Bakugo found out about like One for All. He kind of took Bakugo under his wing a little bit.
Yeah, now they're a little trio. This is like a scene in advance, but like it feels like every time they talk about Midoriya's quirk and the history of it, Bakugo is present now.
Yeah,
I mean, not very much, but distantly reminds me of like a Goku Vegeta, like. I guess you haven't seen it, but in Dragon Ball Super, they're much more of a duo that is competitive, as opposed to like Goku and like interchangeable secondary characters. Like Vegeta's very front and center as like a duo kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
I remember I watched the first episode of Dragon Ball Super, and it was just Vegeta on holidays. I remember being like, "What? I watched Dragon Ball in 10 years. What is this?"
Yeah, very. But anyway, yeah, it feels like they're kind of going for making Bakugo much more central to Midoriya's story. Like he's invested,
which makes sense.
It does because of their relationship, right? So it does work quite well. We have that very quick scene that you mentioned earlier of President Mike and Aizawa. It's like 5 seconds. They're talking about like, what are you gonna do if we find out about more Nomus? But like then they're interrupted immediately by some students because Eri is having some issues. It's kind of like the show is like, remember this? We set this up a season and a half ago. Don't forget about this.
Yeah.
So her horn has grown back to normal size, and it's even though it's been a year and a half for us, it's probably been like 2 weeks for her. So, I think that's like just kind of like a bit of an egg that they're planting. You don't plant eggs, you hatch them, but you know what I mean.
The thing about this scene, which is, I think now that I think about it, we kind of blew past it. There was a moment when Shigaraki was talking with the doctor, and they get into the singularity stuff again, and they talk about like the fourth generation of there's a chance that they might not be able to contain their powers because it's so consolidated. And I think Eri is in, because they've stated that like Midoriya and Ko, they are a part of that group as well, like Todoroki specifically. so I think they kind of teed that up.
Good thing you're paying attention.
Yeah. So
right over my head.
But so I think it made sense because when it was all happening too,
Especially
like her not being able to control her power
situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Really. Okay. That would make a lot more sense if that's what's going on.
Because if it's not that, it's just like a nothing scene.
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is, like, we've had lots of nothing scenes, so sometimes it's hard to separate.
It is hard to tell.
Okay, good pick. So I also want to mention, and I hate to hop around, but I just remembered, in this meeting with Bakugo and All Might and Midoriya, they mentioned like some things that I thought were particularly neat. Just about, because, you know, as I'm sure it's the same with a lot of people, my favorite stuff is the All for One stuff and the One for All stuff, right?
Yeah, vestiges and
the
whatnot.
Vestiges, yeah. So All Might has done some research, and he's found that, you know, he found some of the previous holders of the quirk, but not all of them. Bakugo is actually the one who makes like a big pick, and he goes like, none of them started out with strong quirks. They were all kind of like supportive quirks. None of the heroes were particularly famous. And then we realize they all died young, presumably because they lost in their fights against All for One, and they just kept passing down the quirk, and eventually it was cultivated strongly enough that, you know, All Might was able to put up a pretty good fight. But even then, even he, you know, lost pretty much everything in his encounters with All for One before and after he passed the quirk along to Midoriya. So it feels, you know, it's cool to have some of the history.
And you see, you hear this playing out, you know, and you're like, this show is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, why are we not just 100% dialed into this almost all the time?
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, fuck, like, that's pretty badass. And then, you know, almost like, okay, I think it's time to move on to the next quirk. And it's like, I'm just sitting there. I'm like, yeah, it's time. Like, fuck it. We've only known, you know, we've only had Black Whip for, you know, half a season.
Yeah.
So in a way, it almost feels soon. But in another way, it's like, well, no, we also got to get fucking moving, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm excited to see where that goes. He says the quirk is called Float. And this is also from a super topical character, Nana Shimura, who's Tomura Shigaraki's grandmother.
Perfect timing.
We just saw in a flashback. It's almost like that was meant to be teed up. So yeah, I think that's really cool that we're going to get around to her sooner rather than later, because like she hasn't been talked about a lot, but she sounds like a pretty cool character.
Well, that's the thing, because the most we've had is like, you know, fleeting moments between Gran Torino and All Might.
Yep.
And then all the stuff with, you know, Tamura, you know, Tamura's like, you know, when he found out about his grandmother being a hero and all that, like we got a little more, and then, you know, all the drama with his dad and all that. So we got a taste of it, and it's like, okay, I think again, thank you, My Hero, for doing some follow-up. You know, obviously it's still going to be a year or so out, but at least it's on the top of our minds knowing we are going to be getting it. But I remember hearing when at first they're saying, all right, we're on to the next power. I was kind of similar to what you said. I was like, oh, is this too soon? But then they followed up of like whose power it was. I'm like, oh yeah, like good choice, you know?
And you know, like this show, they can do time skips pretty adeptly, right? If they needed to burn an episode or two on, you know, Midoriya mastering Black Whip over the summer, and coming back fresh, ready to learn Float, they could easily pull that off.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be really cool to see that move along. The next scene is the hot pot party. I don't know, like this was like I guess just like their slice of life moment for the episode.
It was like the Christmas episode. It worked. It was good. It was lighthearted, you know?
Yeah, they talked about their first year ending in 3 months, so it's technically not even over yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything really of substance there. I don't think so, other than like them talking about food and some lighthearted jokes. But then Aizawa goes outside to talk to All Might.
Yeah, here we go. Let's go. Juice.
Yeah, well, this is where the juice is. So he says he's got a message from Takashi it's Takashi.
His buddy.
Takashi 69 has a message for All Might.
Gross.
But no, yeah, it's the cop guy that All Might's friends with, and he says he wants you to postpone your meeting with Stain.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
All season, you and I have been begging for him. They teased. We knew. We had a feeling. It's not this season, obviously.
I won't take credit. It was all you. You were like, "Oh, it'd be great to have him back." And then I think you had like a pick, like a few weeks back, and you were like, "Oh, maybe something with Stain." Yeah, it'd be great
Thank you.
to have him back because he was such a fun character, and like I don't want to. Well, I don't know if this is the case, but what I was gonna say was some of my favorite moments from My Hero are always pretty bloody. And Stain was a pretty bloody character and pretty almost Joker-esque for My Hero.
Sure.
It's like as PG as you can make the Joker, and that like he was like brutal and terrifying, but like there was like a weird method in there somewhere.
So
I guess that's not what the Joker is. Anyway, go ahead.
Here's my Stain take. This is head in the clouds. I'm praying. No guarantees it's happening. Like. Stain was all about the false hero, right? Mm-hmm. And like not living up to your true image of like not what a hero is to be. I wonder if Stain's got a bone to pick with what's going on with the former Liberation or the Paranormal Liberation Front or whatever, and all these heroes mixed in saying they're heroes but they're really villains and they're just like thinking about themselves because they just want to use their meta powers.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if we're gonna have Stain let loose, or if this gonna, you know what I mean? Like,
all right, Stain, go roll some heads.
Yeah, like we need backup.
Dude, that'd be such a fun arc.
That would be like I doubt it, but like that would be such. Honestly, I don't know. There's wiggle room. There's wiggle room.
Yeah, we got a whole My Hero Academia arc. I don't know if I would have predicted that. So you never know.
I would kill for just like a 10-minute scene with Stain. All Might and Stain going back and forth. The former number one hero, and Stain the hero killer. Oh fuck!
Give me some cool shit.
Dope.
So yeah, that's coming. That's another thing teed up for season 6. And then Aizawa says that he's going to begin Ares training next week. All Might says he'll help with that. So, they're just setting a lot of things up, right? Because we're rapidly approaching the end of the episode and the season here.
And I think this is what's going to fill that the hopelessness, or like fill up that whole hopelessness for All Might.
Because that's what he says next. Yeah, he feels kind of powerless, right?
But him being able to Aerie clearly has Armageddon level power, kind of just sitting there, because it was actually crazy to see her power. And we've talked about that overhaul fight is all time, all time, like her and and she is the reason overhaul was defeated realistically.
All time My Hero, all time anime fight. The soundtrack is beautiful. It's amazing.
They could really tee up Aerie to be a super interesting and powerful character. Yep. And it's kind of nice to see this character. They kind of touched a bit of it with her being used by the Yakuza, or like I forget their name, but essentially overhauls society.
Yeah, they were
the organized crime
Yakuza take on the Yakuza.
Yeah, and so she was kind of wrapped up in that villain world. I think she is way more suitable as like just an up and coming Midoriya type character, who like has the power to be like even greater kind of thing. So I think this is really cool. They're teeing this up. Again, we're probably years away from anything of like super substantial, but like it's good to see.
Then we go to Jakku Hospital, and someone asks the doctor that's been working with Shigaraki and co. How is his research going? And he says all that's left is to wait for the finishing touches. And then that's where they cut to Tomura being zapped by all these cables. From here we go to Hawks. And he's undercover still, and he's monologuing internally, just saying, X day will be here soon. Like the prophesized day where the Paranormal Liberation Front kind of makes their move. And then we get credits, but there is an after credits scene, though there's not really much there. There's some weird setup here. So there's a couple things. One is all the students are realizing that their work studies, which is like how they're going to wrap up their first year, are expeditionary operations. So it just sounds like they're going to be probably used for some kind of exercise or some kind of real confrontation where they're actually going to work alongside with pro heroes. I
think it's them teeing up, like getting the jump on the Paranormal Liberation Front.
Yeah. That's my guess too. And then there's because the green-haired chick is there, the green-haired girl that worked with Endeavor. She was there prepping them for some kind of encounter. And then there's the 5-second scene with the cute kid named Day, D-A-I, Die. He's got an Endeavor doll, and someone that looks like a guardian type older sister, or maybe a mom, is saying, "Are you ready for your first day or your first day of first grade?" For the My Hero, for the school. So maybe just a new character that's gonna shake things up in season 6.
Or Shigaraki crushes his school.
Yeah, or that.
Yeah.
And that's the finale of season 5 of My Hero Academia.
That is a wrap, Dave.
Holy cow. Thank you guys for listening. This is crazy. This was 25 weeks of episodes, and we have been not kind, just as often as we've been kind. I think like the season had a lot of hype on it, not just from us, but from a lot of people.
Sure.
So, and it's like it was a little hit and miss sometimes, and no show is perfect, and we never mean to be overly critical. We're obviously really big fans because we've dedicated 25 weeks of our lives to talk about it. So, just hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Maybe we should tell them a little bit about what's next.
So, I think we're stating the obvious here. Like, we're covering Demon Slayer season 2 week to week. Pencil it in.
Early December, because if you guys missed the news, basically Demon Slayer's coming back soon, but they're pretty much just gonna like rehash most of the movie for the first 6 weeks or so, 6 or 7?
6 weeks. But there is gonna be
one new episode with some
I think the opening episode in next week or the week after is gonna be a new episode following Rengoku.
On his way to the events of the movie, right?
And then apparently there's new scenes and new edits throughout. So like it is going to be worth watching week to week.
Yeah.
But I think we're only really going to jump in December.
That's when like the brand new arc starts. That picks up after
Red Light District arc or whatever they're calling it.
Entertainment or something.
Entertainment District. So I think in the meantime, we're going to keep doing the post show week to week. So please, everyone check those out on Fridays. And I think every 2 weeks we're going to do a anime movie night. We're both going to go through, classics and some newer stuff we've seen. We kind of kicked around. Dave, you had mentioned Paprika, and I think we talked about maybe Akira and Ghost in the Shell, and just to tide us over. Let's take a little bit of break. We don't need to jump into a week-to-week show right away. So
there's a lot of really, really great anime movies, and we haven't seen many of them just circumstance. So there's a lot of really cool ones I'm excited to see. Grant's never seen Akira, so we'll have to have one on that. And I've never seen Ghost in the Shell, and we've heard great things about Your Name, and just really great anime movies out there. So there's no shortage of content, so look forward to those episodes. But like Grant said, otherwise weekly, the post show. And if you've never listened to the post show, check it out this Friday or any of the old episodes. It's basically everything else we watch with a much more kind of relaxed feel, right? Like I last week talked about my first ever manga that I read. I usually review some kind of movie there. We talk about Sunny Boy. We did To Your Eternity and Tokyo Revengers and all that good stuff. So there's plenty of content on the post show for you.
Yeah, check it out, guys.
Cool. Man, thank you guys so much for listening. What a blast. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, follow the podcast, support it on social media, however you see fit, on whatever social media platform that you see fit. And again, thank you guys so much for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.